Hello, I am Aditya and welcome to my YouTube channel Peeling Facts. So where I will be talking about array of topics like climate change, geopolitics, economics and many more. So let's get started. So I started this channel as I felt the mainstream media does not focus much on international relations. Even if it does, it actually focuses only on the masala topics, that is Pakistan or China. So here I am to cover all those uncovered topics which is left by mainstream media and give you some fun facts and better insights on international relations. So in this video I will be talking about the recent visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin to India, which is also significant from a historic point of view that recently India and Russia completed its 50th anniversary of India-Soviet Peace and Friendship Treaty. So I will be covering the past, present and future of the India-Russia bilateral relationship. So let's get started. December, Mr. Putin visited India. So it was a short 5-hour trip, but he arrived at the Hyderabad house. He held a dialogue with Prime Minister Modi, signed agreements and left for the Moscow by the night. So let me start with a question. Why does this trip really matters to India and to the world politics? Well, the answer to this question I will give you by the end of this video. So any bilateral relation is based on 3 pillars. So what are these three pillars? So the first pillar is economy, the second pillar is defense, and the third pillar is the people-to-people relation, or what we call as the soft power. So first of all, we'll try to analyze all these 3 pillars and then we'll try to evaluate the current situation and the current status of the India-Russia relations. So starting with the first pillar, that is economy. To look at economy, we have to look at the numbers first. So if you look at the bilateral trade of India and Russia, the Indian exports to Russia stood at $2.6 billion, while the Russian exports to India stood at almost $5.48 billion. Well, that sounds a lot of trade, but trust me, it is not. Because for a better assessment, we have to compare the India-Russia bilateral trade with the Russia-China bilateral trade. Year 2020-21, the Russia-China bilateral trade stood at $110 billion, where the Russian exports to China almost accounted for $49.06 billion, while the Chinese exports to Russia stood at $54.8 billion. Now that's a bad news for us. The Russia-China trade is almost 13 times higher than India-Russia trade. On the other hand, both Russia and China last year in a summit announced to reach a target of $200 billion by the financial year 2024. Coming back to India-Russia bilateral trade, if you look at the past 10 years data, we find that the trade is quite stagnant. There are some small fluctuations, but it's almost stagnant. Next, coming to the second pillar, that is security. If you look back, there is a great respect for India-Soviet partnership during the 1971 war. But post-Cold War and in the era of liberalization, things have slowly started to change and India started moving a bit towards the United States. While India tilted towards the United States, on the other hand, US imposed sanctions on Russia and Russia slowly started tilting towards the China. Though global balance of power changed, but the India-Russia defense ties remained intact. In India, Russia is even known as an all-weather friend or all-weather ally. So Russia still remains the biggest defense goods supplier to India and vice versa. That is, India still procures the highest defense goods from Russia. But recently, if we see the Stockholm Peace Research Institute's report, we see that things have started to change a little bit. So 49% of India's defense procurement is from Russia, while on the Russian part, India retains the top spot with 23%. But what is interesting is the overall exports of Russian defense goods to India drastically declined by 53%. This could be because of various reasons. So one could be India's push towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, India India developing its own fighter jets like LCA Tejas, or India building its own aircraft carrier, or maybe because India is importing excessively from France or USA. But at the same time, India has reassured Russia by procuring S-400 that it is looking for a continued and long-term partnership. And what is interesting here is India is procuring S-400 even after repeated threats of US sanctions under CATSA. India is going to procure this S-400, which also suggests that India is actually exercising its strategic autonomy, which is a good thing. So that was about defense trade ties between India and Russia. But the security ties are not just limited to defense trade. So India and Russia time to time have conducted different military exercises such as Indra, such as Zapad 2021, which was a multilateral exercise between the Eurasian countries and some Asian countries. So these were some military exercises they both have conducted. Apart from this, both the countries have supported each other time to time on the issue of Afghanistan, in dealing with the instability created in the Central Asian region, because both the countries have the fear that the instability which is created by the US exit from Afghanistan will spill over to both Russia and India. Now moving to our last pillar, that is culture or soft power. So to make a fair or quantitative assessment, we have to look at the numbers of the Indian diaspora living in Russia. So if we look at the data published by the Ministry of External Affairs of Government of India, we find that there are very few Indians who live in Russia when compared to countries like US, UK or even China. Now the question is, what exactly Indians do in Russia? Mostly Indians go to Russia for medical studies. It could be maybe because there is excessive competition in India for limited medical seats. Apart from that, there are few gems and diamond traders who work in Russia. Talking about soft power, how could I miss Bollywood? So as per different articles, what I found is Russians really like old Bollywood movies. So some prominent Indian movies which was watched by Russians are Mera Naam Joker, Disco Dancer, Sholay are some of them. But what is also interesting to know is the post-liberalization period or after the Cold War era, the new Bollywood movies are not that prominent in Russia. So before answering the question, why does this trip matters? Let's quickly evaluate the three pillars. So first pillar is economy, which is quite stagnant. Second is defense. So we see a declining trend in defense exports. The third is soft power. We see a very low diaspora when compared to the other countries. There's not much people-to-people connection between India and Russia. So after a brief analysis of this topic, we find that there is a stagnant trade and declining people-to-people relations. So this trip by the Russian President Vladimir Putin tried to address these underlying issues. A total of 28 agreements were signed during this visit. Now we'll try to understand what were these 28 agreements about. So India and Russia agreed on number of issues. So one of them was India wanted to open a new consulate general in the easternmost city of Russia, that is Vladivostok, because both India and Russia want to increase the trade through the maritime arena, right? So Vladivostok is the easternmost part of the Russia. So India wanted to open a new consulate general. So Russia has extended its support to provide land and other resources to actually start that consulate general. Apart from that, both India and Russia jointly agreed to produce a total of 6 lakh AK-203 rifles in India. So that is another big achievement by both the countries. Lastly, an agreement on military technical cooperation was signed, which is being signed for a while now, and which extended the military technical cooperation between both the countries for another 10 years, that is till 2031. That was about the agreement signed by the India and Russia during this visit. But the future doesn't look very bright as the divergence is increasing day by day. Historically, India has maintained its relationship with both US and Russia. It actually managed its relation with both Russia and US by following the principle of non-alignment. But in recent times, in the new world order, the things have changed. There are new realities which India has to accept. It remains to be seen how India will manage its relations with US and Russia in case if Russia invades Ukraine. So in 2014, when Russia invaded Crimea, India actually supported Russian move. India supported Russia by abstaining from voting in the UNSC. Things have changed now. Russia is now very much anchored with China economically and strategically as well. Thus, India has to take all these aspects into consideration and navigate its foreign policy according to these considerations. So this trip was more about symbolism, nostalgia and a message to the world. India has seen even tougher times than these, but India has successfully navigated from all those situations. Now it will be interesting to see if India will repeat its stance it took in 2014 or this time it will be different. If you like my content, you can like, share and subscribe with your friends and family. Till then, goodbye and see you in the next episode.